Hello, and welcome to this eSchool News webinar on more than tracking your IT assets, achieving success with asset administration. My name is Karen Barrick, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. I'm a freelance education marketing consultant with eSchool News, and I'm excited to have you join us for what should be a very informative session. Today's webinar is sponsored by Dude Solutions, a leading software-as-a-service provider of operations management solutions to education, government, healthcare, senior living, manufacturing, and membership-based organizations. Before I introduce our presenter, I'd like to take a few minutes to go over some housekeeping notes and review some features of the platform that you can use during this webinar. First, please note that today's event will be recorded, so don't worry if your note-taking abilities aren't able to keep up with the speed of the presentation. Within a few days of the event, you'll receive an email message that contains a link to the recorded webinar, along with a PDF of the slides. Now, during the event, you can submit questions at any time by clicking on the purple Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, then typing your question into the pop-up box that appears, and hitting Submit. We'll save those questions for the presenter during the Q&A portion that is scheduled at the end of the webinar. We also have a group chat function that you can launch by clicking on the blue chat button at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to use this feature to chat among yourselves or to contact someone from the eSchool News team if you have a technical question. But please don't use this feature to ask questions of our speaker. If you do have a question for the speaker, please use the Q&A box that I previously mentioned. If you find that you're having a hard time reading the text on the slides, you can enlarge that portion of your screen by clicking on the box in the upper right-hand corner of the slide window, or you can click on the double arrows for a full screen view of the slide presentation. Finally, we encourage you to join the back channel conversation on Twitter by referring to the Twitter handles @DudeSolutions and hashtag ESNWebinar in your tweets. Dude Solutions has also made a resource available for you to access, and you can find that link to the material in the Additional Resources box on the left side of your screen. Now, with these housekeeping items out of the way, let's get started with our presentation. Our main speaker today is John Ordelt, Implementation Specialist at Dude Solutions. John has always had a passion for delighting clients and has followed that passion across multiple industries while serving as a member of the implementation team at Dude Solutions. And it is John's knowledge of user workflows and asset management that has been a vital component in helping his clients launch successful asset management programs. At this time, I'm going to turn things over to John. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you all for joining me today. As you have heard, my name is John Ordelt, and I am the Implementation Specialist at Dude Solutions, and I'll be leading you through the webinar from this moment on. So, to give you a quick overview on the topics that we're going to be discussing today, we're first going to be pretty much defining what IT asset management is to you. We're then going to talk about a little bit about the importance of actual tracking these assets. We're going to discuss also the differences between agent and also agentless tracking mechanisms. Followed up by a discussion on your asset administration and some thoughts for you to take away today. And then we're going to wrap things up with a Q&A session. So before we begin, I just want a brief bit of information about our company. We are the Dude Solutions, and we is consistently growing. As of right now, we have over 12,000 clients, millions of users, and just a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated our 20th anniversary. We bought ourselves something very nice, flowers and whatnot. So without further ado, let's go on and discuss what IT asset management is. If you're already tracking assets, why IT asset management matters to you, and what the overall value is. To sum up IT asset management, it's simply tracking your devices and assets that are active on your network. This will be done to verify if the asset is up to date, if it's protected, also if it's properly configured. So as you all may be well aware of this. It's an ongoing process for IT departments to successfully track all the assets that they have out there. So how exactly are you tracking your IT assets at this current time? Are you not currently tracking them in hopes to track them in the near future? Are you mainly tracking them through the use of a spreadsheet or a document or a pen and paper even? Do you currently have a asset administration tool in place and looking to build upon that knowledge, or are you using something else all in all? So why now is it more important than ever to track your assets? It matters in a different few ways. One of the main reasons it matters is that it can impact your workflow. Spending time acquiring information can sometimes be tedious and take on its own special project to acquire that information. It is also valuable to maintain accurate data, accurate count of all your assets and also your inventory. It will help improve budgeting information and just how much you will need in the future, how much you actually have on hand at the moment. And asset management assists you in monitoring and collecting that actual data on those assets, such as software downloads or the free space of certain devices. And a big factor is also security and the concerns of what weaknesses you may have on your assets and your data. Since IT assets include hardware, software, ownership license, and more, your inventory can often feel overwhelming and hard to track and hard to monitor. Manually entering the data is a tedious process and takes time away from your staff and the focus of the more important projects that they could be dedicated to. So asset administration programs will eliminate the need for manual input through automated discovery and monitoring, which then could continue to monitor and collect that valuable data and information from those assets and help you in the long run to view that information and also plan for the future. I expect budgeting information or expecting a new rollout of different devices. And it will also boost your overall security by having the ability to track who's maybe logging into your assets or tracking whether or not the assets are offline or even in the worst case scenario, being stolen out of your organization. With that being said, let's dive into the importance of tracking your assets in a little more, shall we? It's on all of our minds on a daily basis working in IT. It's security. With asset management, you'll have the ability to find those, so to speak, weak points in your network, whether that be the firewall or the antivirus is not up to date, invalid users logging into your assets, monitoring the software that's actually being downloaded onto your assets. And it'll help you better prepare for a potential data breach so you can catch it before it becomes an actual problem itself. So asset management can assist in all these different ways. Another very important reason why you would want to use an asset management solution and the impact is on your workflows. So if you're able to track your assets, you may be able to locate those outdated assets on your network. And outdated assets can cause a whole snowball of problems. They can cause slowdowns for not only the technicians that are working on these assets on a daily basis, but it also can affect the end user experience, where if they have to consistently get work done with those outdated assets, it's going to have a negative experience for them. Overall, it leads to that frustration, and it just ends up being less efficient and productive for everyone across the board. Your technicians and your staff are going to be more inclined to be working on these assets, and your user experience is going to be declining because they'll have to be using their time out of their day to handle those situations. Another valuable reason why you should track your assets is to get almost a real-time view on what your inventory looks like. What do you actually have out there? What are you having on your network on any given moment during that day? You'll be able to track what your assets are on your network currently, and then you'll also have that historical record of the other information and the other assets that have been out on your network from that moment on. This will give you an accurate view on your devices, speed up the productivity for your everyone involved, and potentially close those gaps within the security protection, so you will have less room for those security concerns coming through. And another big valuable part to asset management is, of course, budgeting. It's all about the dollars and cents and how can we save a little bit here and save a little bit there. So asset management will allow you to track maintenance or repair costs for those different assets. In the same sense, it'll allow you to be better able to forecast for the future costs. So if you'll be able to track where you've got the funding and the budgeting for the previous fiscal years, then you have a better understanding of what to expect in the near future and how much money to expect to be spending on your assets. And it affects the most valuable part of your budget is your employees. How much time are they spending on actually tracking these assets? How much of the day is dedicated to obtaining this information from your assets and making decisions and a game plan from it? So it'll allow your staff to have more free time to tackle the pressing matters and overall improve their productivity, their teamwork, and overall success in their position itself. So now let's talk a little bit about the differences between agent-based and agentless solutions. There's four main differences in the method of discovery and inventorying those assets. It's asset discovery and inventory, centralized data management, maintenance and upkeep, as well as the reliability. So as far as asset discovery and inventory is concerned, this will rely more on agent-based discovery tools will rely more on a manual input of data, where agents can actually be installed on those devices within your inventory, and that allows the user to obtain that data whenever available, whenever that agent is activated. So the one thing that may be a speed bump in the plan is some devices don't allow for those agents to be installed on your devices themselves. For agentless tools, there's much shorter of an implementation time. It will rely more on a local server to collect the actual data, go out there, retrieve that information, and bring it back to you on its time. It's less work, less invasive on all your devices, and as long as your device can be found on an IP address, it will be able to be discovered by an asset management tool. For centralized data management, agent-based tools, that information you're gathering can be obtained while not on your network. In the case of an actual technician being on site, if the device is not able to be on that network, they still will be able to perform that data collection in real time, and then you'll also have that ability to have that on-site diagnostic. You'll have the technician there obtaining the information in real time and then being able to address the needs of that actual asset. Whereas for agentless, it will only work with assets that are alive and well on your network, so to speak. If those devices do go off your network, then you'll also be able to identify and assist whenever locating those devices based on that last successful scan collection. So when was the last time that asset was scanned? What information did it provide you? Was it an IP address? to a location that it was previously at, and when was the last time that it was successfully scanned, and what happened between that period of time and whenever you're investigating where that asset has gone to. In regards to maintenance and upkeep for agent-based and agentless discovery tools, they almost can work hand in hand if you utilize both. You'll be able to locate those devices that are in the need of attention if they haven't properly been scanned at any point. You can also use those agent-based discovery tools to perform that on-site diagnostic, gather that real-time information, and address the needs of that asset at that given moment and be able to complete the task. So they almost have a working relationship between agent-based and agentless in the form of maintenance. As far as reliability goes, for agent-based discovery tools, they take on more of a direct approach, where the information that's being pulled from those assets themselves on an individual basis, so that if the device goes down, then the agent-based tool goes down as well. So if the device is not able to be operational, that agent-based discovery tool loses its power at that point. Whereas for agentless discovery tools, it will require fewer resources, less interaction, and it also allows you to identify maybe large-scale issues that may become present. If you are able to identify a series of different assets that are all about to expire with their warranties, if they're running slower, if they haven't been identified on your in a hot minute, a whole host of different items that you may be able to catch on a larger scale than an individual agent-based scale. So by picking the best solution for your organization, this is only going to increase a series of different things. Your productivity, it'll streamline your workflow, it'll assist with overall speeding up the whole process of your team's work. So what asset administration would be the most ideal for your situation? For that, I have a couple quick questions that you will want to take with you. Just some helpful questions that will guide you into helping make the right decision on which asset management solution you would go for. The main important one, are all your devices IP addressable? Are they, if you use an agentless discovery tool, are they going to be able to be found? Or there's going to be a lot of assets that don't have IP addresses that you would have to do a manual process of updating that information. Another question is, does this solution actually work hand in hand with my department's objectives? What you sought out to achieve, will this solution actually accomplish those goals? Will it give you everything that you need, or is it lacking in any part? Is it obtaining that bit of information or data that is crucial for your operation? Another good question is, how many devices will have to be manually addressed? How many will have to have that agent-based tool onto them? Then we'll still have to send that technician or the staff worker out to the actual device to look at that information and manually obtain it. That sort of goes hand in hand with how many devices are IP addressable. So how many are almost, you can refer to them as discoverable devices or non-discoverable devices. Another great question to ask is, does this solution actually work hand in hand with a ticketing solution? There are asset management solutions out there that will work with a ticketing solution at the same time, which you could almost create a health report on an asset, see exactly how many times a ticket has been submitted based on that one particular asset. Or in the asset, you can see just how many tickets have been submitted on behalf of that asset as well. So is that a possibility for those solutions that you're looking into? Or another question is, how much can I invest in manpower for implementation? How long is this going to take to get from point A to point C? Is it going to be a year-long process, or is it going to be a shorter process? And how much time and manpower do you have to keep that up at that point? Once you implement that software or that solution, what does it look like from that moment going forward? How many hours are you going to spend with your staff going out there and performing that maintenance and upgrade on those solutions? So I have a couple tips and tricks whenever you're looking into these solutions itself. So look for vendors that offer that integrated ticketing and asset administration solutions. It's invaluable to be able to actually track that history of a device within the same solution itself. So you can track those tickets that have been submitted. So if give you an example, if one device has been looked at 5 times in the past month, it may be time for a different solution instead of just a normal repair. It might be a replace time for that type of asset itself. So you're going to want to look for those vendors that actually not only offer the asset management solution, but you would want to also look for an integrated ticketing solution at the same time. Look for solutions that enable you to see basically the history. This is that health report that I was referring to. This is extremely critical, like if you're looking at replacement cycles, how often are you going to actually be replacing these devices? Is it every 2 years, every 4 years? Is it every 4 years and you thought it was 4 years, but now you're realizing that you're seeing the history of these devices, that it may be every 2 years that you need to refresh those assets. You can also then track the repair, the replacement decisions. That was that last example that I was referring to, where if you realize that you're working on one device multiple times throughout the same course of like a month or so, then it might be time to replace that asset instead of repairing it. This is also a great way to keep documentation if you need reports or information based to present to funding sources. If you're looking to get that extra capital to make sure that you do have that budget to actually replace instead of just repair those devices. You can also track the ownership and overall security with these. So you're going to look for ones that will be able to track who exactly is the owner of this device. Instead of not knowing who the owner is, who to go to whenever a device appears to be running slow or low on memory or has improper software, look for one of those solutions that will actually be able to track that ownership within the actual asset itself. And the overall security, that will also play into factor the software. So if they need a software upgrade, if their firewall antivirus is out of date, if it doesn't have a firewall or antivirus, hopefully you won't run into that case, but it may actually happen out there. You'll be able to track that, you'll be able to identify it and be able to catch that prior to it snowballing into a bigger issue at that time. And one of the most important factors is research. Take your time, look at all the different items that are out there, all the different solutions. Don't hesitate to ask questions. Look into every nook and cranny and make sure that you have the most educated and well thought through solution prior to going forward with it. So how might Dude Solutions help you? So for Dude Solutions, we do have under our technology and technology management umbrella of a software platform, we do have that asset management software called Untitled. That'll allow you to track the assets remotely, look at the information about those devices, but we also do have another software called Help Desk that is our ticketing solution, and those two do work hand in hand, where you'll be able to track the tickets within the actual assets and the assets within the actual tickets themselves. We have a few other solutions for your work order system and asset tracking on the maintenance side of things under the work and asset management. We also have some energy and also event management solutions. So with all these, what all is included with these? We offer it based on a cloud-based solution, so you have unlimited users and you have automatic updates. You don't have to manually go in there and click an update now button, and you don't have to worry about maxing out the number of users within your product itself. And we have what I love to refer to as our legendary support team. They're incredibly professional. We have interactive classes for you. We have the lifetime support, so you're never going to lose us. And we have multiple implementation methods. So if you are an organization that doesn't have that much free time, we do have different implementation methods that might be more up your speed, where it's a self-guided method and on your own method. We have a web-based method to implementing your software. And then we also have those implementation methods where you're going to classes with other organizations, brainstorming with them, as well as learning about the product while you're setting it up at the same time. So if you are interested in hearing more about any of our software, feel free to select any of the appropriate boxes on this poll and we'll provide you with that information. To give you a brief overview on what each of these entries would be, the Dude Solutions Technology Management is maintaining like your actual data. That's the help desk and Insight, where it'll actually track your assets, look into the information, and then the help desk portion would be the ticketing solution. This is primarily for the IT departments of your organizations. For the Dude Solutions Work and Asset Management solution, this is more cloud-based work order solutions, and you'll also be able to streamline the task. You'll be able to record work on different assets and locations based on your work order system, and primarily handling the maintenance side of your organization. For the Dude Solutions Event Management, this is more solutions that will assist you in scheduling facilities in a more stress-free manner. The Dude Solutions Energy Management, these are solutions that will help you track utilities, reduce energy costs, and they can actually even track your Energy Star score with those solutions. And then for Dude Solutions Capital Forecasting, this will assist you with creating a plan for even up to 30 years in advance for like involving your actual assets that may need to be repaired or replaced, but it allows you to report on this data and level out the spikes, so to speak, so you can actually get a better forecasting method of what your budget is for these different assets itself. And with that being said, I'll turn it back over to Karen for a little Q&A session. Yep.
I apologize. I believe I was on mute. What kind of data or asset details can be tracked with an asset administration tool?
Oh, that's a great question. So a lot of the data, the details about an actual asset can be very very intensive. It can track how much free space is on a device, what type of software is installed on the device. It can actually pick up what type of network adapters it's actually running on, if it's a laptop or a desktop in that sense. There's ways of tracking software licenses and when they're set to expire. There's a whole host of different items in the main data information about those assets, like the free space, the MAC address, in regards to like Windows or Mac devices or anything of that nature. You can track what the UID number is, the version of the operating system that it's running within it. And not just computers that I'm speaking of. There's a whole host of different other assets and details that you can track, down to printers and what make, model, and what year they're born, or not born, created, and other information about printers, monitors, routers, switches. There's a lot of different details within each of those, in addition to what I discussed about the computers. But a lot, almost imagine if you were an administrator and you could log into a computer with your admin credentials, all the information you can pull from a device. Typically, asset management solutions will be able to pull that information for you so you don't have to manually log in each time.
Thank you. As a reminder for everyone, if you have a question for the speaker, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Go to the next question. Do you have an example of how this has helped an IT department streamline their workflow?
An example of how it has helped IT departments streamline the workflow. I do have quite a few, actually, examples. I have one client that I have currently worked with, and I know all too well. They have been able to use an asset management solution to track up to 100,000 different devices, and there is only one individual that is in charge of tracking those assets and obtaining this information. That is his sole responsibility, and with an asset management solution, he was able to actually accomplish that. He's able to still have free time in his day, surprisingly, to be able to tackle other tasks, get that reporting data, and find that information for that he actually acquires. And then I also have another example, which is right down the road from our office, about an individual I know that uses a solution to not only streamline their ticketing solution, but they're able to keep track of all the assets that they're a school system, so they're a one-to-one school, and all the children have the computers. So they're able to track on those computers how many times they need to repair a screen, they need to repair a mouse, a keyboard, or anything of that nature, just for the budgeting purposes and also the financial aspect of that as well. So there are a lot of examples that I could go on and on about, but those are the two big ones that jumped out into my head, that it really has helped the one individual be more efficient in getting the information to the budgeting department on the repair costs that are needed to be charged for. And then the other one would be that one individual can successfully maintain and document all the data about up to 100,000 different devices at the same time. Great question.
Next question. Who are the key stakeholders typically involved in setting up an IT asset administration program?
So typically, with who's in charge of setting up the IT asset administration, with this, what you'll primarily need is, what I've seen typically is the network administrator, and also maybe the director of the technology department or the lead technician, somebody that's going to actively be using this product on a day-to-day basis. The reason I include the network administrator is that there's going to be key information that you're going to need to manually input for that implementation process. You're going to want to look for what IP addresses are different devices located on. Do you have an IP range dedicated to printers and one for computers, wireless, wired, different locations within your organization, as well as not only IP addresses, but where, if you go down the choice of agentless based solutions, you're going to want to find that server or that dedicated device that will be that inside person to go out there and talk to all these devices. So you're going to want to find the appropriate server that has the resources available to run this solution. And then you're also going to want that individual for the main thing is credentials. Since these solutions typically act as a administrator, just sitting down at a computer logging in as a local admin, they're going to need those credentials to knock on the door of these devices, give them the credentials, and then obtain that information, and then relay it back to your account itself. So primarily the network administrator is the go-to person, but I also always recommend somebody from the department that's actually actively going to be using it on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. What would you say are the biggest hurdles in first establishing this implementation project? And do you have tips or insights into overcoming any of those?
The biggest hurdles are, I jokingly say, in the IT world, finding the time is the biggest hurdle that you could possibly accomplish. If I know all too well in the IT field, that's the hardest thing to do is find that free time. But as far as the implementation process goes, the main things that I've seen that are the hurdles that to overcome are making sure your devices are able to be discovered. There are solutions out there that will require you to have your devices have a exemption in your firewall or your antivirus. If your remote access is denied on certain devices, that could play into a factor. And in the same sense of like the remote access, making sure that you have the proper credentials for those different assets. So whether that be a Windows credential, a Mac, a Linux, for your network related devices, making sure you're up to date on what SNMP community string name you have. A whole host of different credentials can be used to obtain different bits of information out there about your devices. So it's making sure that you are up to date with those that'll be able to be obtained. So, I had one other thought about that. I mentioned IP addresses being one, credentials, and then overall making sure that your network's ready for it, making sure that you have that dedicated spot to provide the agent-based or agentless solution into like a server, and making sure you're prepared to dedicate that time to actual implementation and finding the ability to actually knock it out. Because it's very gratifying once you complete it, once it starts rolling on its own for you, then you know you have that much more free time on your hands to move forward with.
Thank you. Once again, everyone, if you do have questions, please submit through the Q&A box. At this time, I don't have any other questions that have come in. John, do you have any final comments that you wanted to make?
The only thing I would like to reiterate is one of the last lines of a slide that I presented is take your time, do your research, and find the best solution that meets all your criteria. That's going to be the one thing that I definitely want to leave you with is making sure that at the end of the day, whenever you choose a solution, you're choosing the correct solution for you to go forward.
There is one question that has come in. Your solution's compatibility with other ERP fixed asset systems in place at the client, how does that work?
I believe if I'm reading, if I see that question correctly, it's in reference to like how is it compatible to like integrating with other different solutions outside of our specific solutions? So if our inside account can interact with other different products or vendors' accounts. In that sense, it really would have to be, I would have to gather more information about like what other asset systems you're using in place. There may be a possibility that it could interact. There may not be, but I don't want to mislead you with incorrect information. But that is definitely something that we could reach back out to you and let you know about it based on which other fixed asset systems you have in place.
Okay. Looks like, based on some commentary that we're getting, that was exactly indeed what the question referenced. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
Any other questions, anyone? Any in the audience? We have a few more minutes. In the meantime, why don't we move to the next slide and let everyone see the contact information there for everyone. I have a comment about, the same person who asked the question about the fixed asset systems mentioned CGI Best Advantage FA.
That one I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not going to lie. That was a great question, especially if it stumps me, if it is a possibility. This might be something that we'll have to take offline and get back and follow up with you later on about it. I can do my research and then we'll be able to provide you with the correct information.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the presentation, very informative. It looks like I'm going to wrap things up here. We have no other questions that have come in. If you do have another question that comes up after this webinar, the contact information is now on the slide in front of you. I would encourage you to reach out to Dude Solutions using the contact information you see. I'd like to thank our speaker today, John Ordelt, for a very informative presentation, and I'd like to thank you, our audience members, for joining us as well. Hopefully you gained some useful insights that will help you further leverage technology to manage your devices and technology applications. As a reminder, you'll get an email within the next few days that contains a link to this recording along with the slides. And if you haven't already done so, please also take a minute to download the additional resource that Dude Solutions has provided in the left side of your screen. Thanks again for participating, everyone, and have a great day.